I opened my first brokerage account at 22 years old, scraped together $200, threw it into an S&P 500 index fund, and felt like I was officially doing adult things, smart things, wealth-building things. I checked the app the next morning like I was expecting a notification that said, "Congratulations, you're rich now." My balance had moved up by 31 cents. 31 cents. I had found more than that between my couch cushions the weekend before, so I kept going. $300 a month, every month, just like every personal finance podcast, every Reddit thread, every pay yourself first video told me to do. After 6 months, I had put in $1,800. My total balance was $1,860 something. The market had gifted me about $60 in gains. 6 months of skipping takeout, 6 months of watching that $300 vanish from my checking account on the first of every month, and the grand reward was the cost of 1 tank of gas and a sad airport sandwich. After a full year, my balance sat around $3,750. Total gains? About $150. $150 for an entire year of discipline and sacrifice. I stared at my Fidelity app and genuinely thought, this cannot be the thing that makes people millionaires. The math has to be broken. The people who rave about compound interest must already be rich, or they're lying, or both. I almost pulled every single dollar out. Almost cashed it all in and booked a flight to Miami. And if I had done that, it would have been the most expensive vacation of my life, because I would have traded somewhere north of $800,000 in future wealth for a long weekend on the beach. That is exactly what this video is about. Not the formula for compounding, because you can find that anywhere. Understand is that compounding is not deceiving you. It is honest in a way that feels personally insulting. When someone says your money grows exponentially over time, that is technically accurate. But what they conveniently skip is that the word exponentially includes a very long, very flat, very unrewarding beginning that looks absolutely nothing like growth. It looks like your money sitting there doing almost nothing while you cut back your lifestyle to feed it. Here is the actual math. Let's say you invest $500 a month into a total market index fund. The S&P 500 has averaged roughly 10% annually over the last century including dividends reinvested, and we will use that number. After year 1, you have contributed $6,000 and your balance is approximately $6,300. The market added about $300. $300. That is your reward for 12 full months of commitment. In 2025, that does not even cover 2 weeks of groceries for an average American family. Your brain takes one look at that number and files compound interest under things that technically exist but clearly are not working for me. After year 3, you have put in $18,000 and your balance is around $20,900. The market added roughly $2,900. Better, but $2,900 over 3 years averages out to less than $80 a month in returns. You could have picked up a single extra shift per week at any hourly job in this country and earned the same amount. Compounding is barely rounding the decimal at this point. After year 5, you have contributed $30,000 and your balance is roughly $39,000 with about $9,000 in gains. Now it is starting to resemble something real, but $9,000 over 5 years is still only $150 a month. Meanwhile, your coworker who did not invest just bought a new Xbox and booked a cruise, and he seems genuinely happy. You start wondering if maybe he is the smart one. This is where most people stop. According to Fidelity, the median 401k balance for workers under 35 is just $16,000. The median. This is about why compounding feels completely useless for so long that the majority of people abandon it before it ever works, the specific dollar number where everything changes, and what has to shift in your head before the math actually starts working in your life. Let's get into it. The first thing you need to. Half of young American workers have less than $16,000 saved for retirement. Most of them started. Most of them slowed down or quit because the first few years of compounding feel like shoveling sand into the ocean, and I understand that feeling completely because I lived it. Here's what no one explains clearly enough. Compounding does not run in a straight line. It does not even behave the way your brain imagines when you hear the word exponential. It operates on a curve that is nearly flat at the start, bends slowly upward for years, and then at one very specific point it goes vertical so fast it will genuinely shock you. So what is that point? Where is the number where compounding stops feeling pointless and starts feeling like a force you cannot slow down even if you tried? The answer is $100,000. $100,000 in invested assets is the tipping point. It is the threshold where the curve visibly changes. It is where your money starts earning more in a single year than you are contributing every single month. And once you cross it, the entire feeling of investing transforms completely. Here is exactly why. If you have $100,000 invested and the market returns 10% in a year, you earn $10,000 without doing a single thing. $10,000. That is $833 a month sitting in your account growing on its own while you sleep, eat, work, stress, binge shows, and do absolutely nothing financially productive. At $500 a month in contributions, your money is now earning nearly twice what you are putting in. The portfolio has officially become the engine and your contributions are just bonus fuel. Compare that to year one when you had $6,000 invested and the market gave you $300. At $6,000, your money earns about $25 a month. You barely notice it exists. At $100,000, your money earns $833 a month. That is more than many American households save in an entire month. Same market, same 10% return, completely different experience, because the base is finally large enough for the percentage to produce a number that actually means something. This is where your brain consistently gets percentages wrong. 10% of $6,000 is $600 a year. 10% of $100,000 is $10,000. 10% of $500,000 is $50,000. The percentage never changes. The experience of the percentage changes completely depending on how much time you gave it. Let me make this concrete with actual milestone numbers because I think seeing it laid out this way will hit differently. A woman named Tara starts investing $500 a month at age 25. She earns 10% annually on average and never stops. At age 30, 5 years in, her balance is around $39,000. She has contributed $30,000 and the market added about $9,000. Her money earned her roughly 3 months' worth of her own contributions. Feels slow. Feels like it is barely working. At age 35, 10 years in, her balance is around $104,000. She has crossed the threshold. Contributions total $60,000 and market gains are $44,000. Her returns are now nearly as large as everything she ever deposited. The curve is bending. At age 40, 15 years in, her balance is roughly $208,000. She has put in $90,000 and the market generated $118,000. Her investment gains now officially exceed her total lifetime contributions. The freight train has left the station. At age 45, 20 years in, her balance is approximately $380,000. Contributions are $120,000 and market gains are $260,000. Compounding is not helping Tara anymore. Compounding is carrying her. At age 55, 30 years in, her balance is approximately $1.1 million. Total lifetime contributions across 30 years were $180,000. The market generated over $900,000. Tara is a millionaire on $500 a month, a habit that felt completely useless for its first 5 years. And here is the part that genuinely keeps me up at night. If Tara had quit at year 3 when her balance was $20,900 and the gains felt laughable, she would have walked away from approximately $1 million in future wealth. That is not a metaphor. That is the literal arithmetic of quitting during the boring years. Now the other side. A man named Jordan waits until age 35 to start. Same $500 a month, same 10%, same market, same discipline. By age 55, Jordan has around $380,000. That is a real number and a solid foundation. But Tara hit $380,000 at age 45, a full decade earlier. And Tara at 55 has $1.1 million versus Jordan's $380,000. Same contributions, same market, and the only difference is 10 years on the front end. Those 10 years added $720,000 to Tara's outcome. $720,000 for doing nothing except starting earlier. That is what time actually means in this equation. I need to talk about the psychology of this because most financial content completely ignores it, and that is a major reason smart people quit. Behavioral economists have a term called hyperbolic discounting. It is the human tendency to prefer smaller rewards right now over much larger rewards in the future, especially when the future reward feels uncertain or far away. Your brain literally places a lower value on future money. $1 today feels worth more to your brain than $2 10 years from now, even though mathematically that makes no sense. This is not a character flaw. It is a survival mechanism baked into your neurology from a time when humans did not live long enough for compound interest to matter. When you invest $500 and see it become $523 after a month, your brain runs an immediate cost-benefit analysis. You gave up $500 worth of real things you could have enjoyed today and received $23 you cannot touch for 30 years. Your brain's verdict is terrible deal. The sacrifice is concrete and immediate. The reward is abstract and distant. Of course it feels pointless. You are literally wired to feel exactly that way. There is a second force working against you, which is social comparison. You are investing $500 a month and your friend is spending $500 a month on trips, new outfits, and going out. At the end of the year, your friend has memories, stories, and photos. You have a brokerage statement showing $3,900 you are not allowed to spend. Your friend looks like they are winning every single time for years, until one day 2 decades into the curve you have a 7-figure account and your friend is wondering how to afford retirement. But that day is 20 years away, and every vacation photo your friend posts between now and then is a small argument in favor of quitting. The third force is the absence of feedback. When you go to the gym, you see changes in weeks. When you learn an instrument, you hear improvement in months. When you invest in the early years, there is almost no perceptible signal that anything is working. Your balance barely moves. There is nothing to see, feel, or use to reinforce the behavior. Humans need feedback loops to maintain habits, and compounding does not provide one for the first several years. It is like going to the gym every day for 2 years, looking exactly the same in the mirror, and then waking up one morning with the body of an athlete. That is essentially what happens with long-term investing, except the timeline is even longer. So how do you stay in the game when every signal your brain sends says to stop? 2 things: automation and identity. Automation removes the decision and identity removes the temptation. Automation is the practical side. Set up an automatic transfer the day after your paycheck deposits. The money leaves your checking account before you see it, before you feel it, before your brain has time to redirect it somewhere that feels better right now. If you have a 401k at work, increase your contribution by 1% this week. Not 5%, not 10%, just 1%. You will not notice 1% missing from your paycheck, but that 1% compounded over 30 years can mean an additional $100,000 or more in your retirement account. Vanguard's How America Saves data consistently shows that participants who use automatic contribution escalation, meaning their percentage goes up by 1% each year automatically, end up with significantly higher balances than those who rely on willpower and manual decisions. The most financially successful investors are not the most motivated ones. They are the ones who set up a system and got themselves out of the way. The 2025 IRS limit for 401k contributions is $23,500 for workers under 50. If your employer matches contributions and you are not capturing the full match, you are leaving free money in your company's pocket every single paycheck. Fidelity reported that 88% of 401k participants received an employer match in 2024. Every unmatched dollar is compounding you permanently give up and will never get back. Identity is the deeper layer and most people miss it entirely. The question is not should I invest this month? The question is am I a person who invests? When investing becomes part of how you define yourself, not a task on a to-do list but a core part of who you are, the boring years stop feeling like sacrifice and start feeling like confirmation. Every automatic transfer is a small vote for the person you are becoming. You are not giving up $500. You are being the kind of person who builds real wealth quietly and patiently without needing applause or a visible result to keep going. The people who reach financial independence are rarely the highest earners in the room. They are consistently the ones who made investing a non-negotiable part of their identity early and then never questioned it again. Let me show you one more set of numbers because this illustrates exactly how dramatically the curve shifts once you clear the first major threshold. Getting from $0 to $100,000 is the hardest stretch of the entire journey. At $500 a month and 10% returns, it takes roughly 10 years. You contribute $60,000 yourself and the market adds $44,000. You are doing the majority of the heavy lifting and the work feels entirely yours. Getting from $100,000 to $200,000 takes about 5 years, half the time. You contribute $30,000 and the market adds roughly $70,000. The market is now doing more than double your work. Getting from $200,000 to $400,000 takes another 5 years. Your contributions add $30,000 and the market adds roughly $170,000. The market is generating nearly 6 times what you put in. Getting from $400,000 to $1 million takes about 6 years. Your contributions add $36,000 and the market adds roughly $564,000. The first $100,000 took 10 years. The last $600,000 took 6 years. Read those numbers one more time. The beginning is slow, the end is violent. The curve does not just bend, it breaks your expectations entirely. This is why people who quit in year 3 are making the single most expensive decision of their financial lives. They are quitting during the only part of the journey where quitting feels completely rational, because the returns feel negligible and the sacrifice feels very real. What they are actually quitting is the back half of the curve, which is where all of the wealth lies, and you can only get to the back half by surviving the front half. I have to address the other side of this because ignoring it would be dishonest. Compounding does not only work in your favor, it also works against you, and when it does it is just as relentless. If you carry $6,500 in credit card debt at 22% APR, which is right around the current national average, and you make only minimum payments, the interest compounds against your balance and costs you thousands in extra charges over time. The exact same mathematical engine that turns $100 a month into $226,000 in your favor will turn a $6,000 balance into a $15,000 burden when it is running in the opposite direction. U.S. credit card debt crossed $1.27 trillion in 2024, and the average American carries about $6,500 in revolving balances, compounding at roughly 22% interest, while their investments, if they have any, are compounding at 10%. The gap between those two rates is the exact difference between building wealth and eroding it. Compounding has no loyalty. It runs on whatever fuel you give it. Feed it your investments and it works for you. Feed it your debt and it works for the bank. I hear constantly that people cannot afford $500 a month, so let us run the actual numbers at smaller amounts because the math still works, it just requires more patience. $200 a month starting at 25, 10% average return, 30 years gives you a final balance around $452,000. You contributed $72,000 and the market generated $380,000. You end up with nearly $500,000 on 4 fewer restaurant meals per month for 30 years. $100 a month, same parameters, gives you a final balance roughly $226,000. You contributed $36,000 across your entire investing life and the market added $190,000 on top. That is a 528% return on every dollar you ever invested. $100 a month is $3.33 a day. You spend more than that on a medium coffee. The problem was never that you could not afford to invest. The problem is that nobody showed you the correct time horizon. The numbers look meaningless in year 1 and they look life-changing in year 25. The version of you that starts this month will not recognize the account balance of the version of you at 55. I opened that brokerage account at 22 with $200 and a lot of doubt. The 31 cents the market gave me on day 1 felt like a joke. It turned out to be the most important 31 cents of my financial life, because it was the first fraction of a dollar that ever worked for me while I was asleep. That 31 cents has been compounding every single day since, and it does not look like 31 cents anymore. Yours won't either, but you have to start. And then you have to survive the boring stretch. The stretch where the balance barely moves, where your friends seem to be enjoying life more, where every reasonable thought in your head says this is not working. That feeling is not evidence that compounding is broken. It is the front end of the curve. It is the price of admission for everything that comes after. And then one day, not gradually but in a way that genuinely catches you off guard, you will open your account and the number will not add up. It will be larger than everything you ever deposited. It will be growing faster than you can keep track of. The market will be doing more work in a single year than you did in the first 5 combined. That is the moment the curve breaks. That is the moment compounding stops feeling like a scam and starts feeling like the most powerful financial decision you ever made. It is coming. The math guarantees it. You just have to still be there when it arrives and subscribe to Liana Invests.